It wasn't a reflection. It wasn't an animal. In the dark, something stood there, massive, silent. And then the eyes opened, deep red, watching, intelligent. On myths, monsters, and mullets, we hear encounters like this all the time. But this one was close, too close. No sound, no movement, just red eyes, staring back from the woods, and the feeling that it knew exactly who it was looking at.
Out in the woods, shadows creep slow. Footprints deep where no man should go. Cold winds howl through hollers and brooks. Whispers of Bigfoot in the way it looks. Myths, monsters, and bullets in the night. Under a pale moon, strange glowing light. Truth out there like a blade it cuts. Myths, monsters, and bullets run amok.
Welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets, the show where the strange, the unexplained, and the weird take center stage, and where the people behind the encounters matter just as much as the encounters themselves. We're not here just to talk about what was seen. We're here to understand who saw it, how it changed them, and why it still matters. Before we dive in, quick shout out to our supporters over on Patreon. If you want to help keep the show independent, ad-free, and unapologetically weird, head over to Patreon for members-only episodes, early access to public episodes, and bonus material you won't see or hear anywhere else. If you've had an encounter or something weird you've just never been able to explain, I want to hear from you. Email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. That's mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Your experience can be featured on a future episode. Don't forget to mark your calendars, June 6th, 2026. I'll be speaking at the Arkansas Cryptid Fest in North Little Rock, Arkansas. If you're into cryptids, folklore, and listening to great speakers, that's where you need to be. If you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed, leave us a review, share the show with a friend who lives for the unexplained. That's the only way we can grow. And welcome back to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methenkamp. On tonight's show, we have Jeff Byers. Jeff and I met in Salina, Ohio at the Bigfoot Festival back in October. I was walking around with my Myths, Monsters, and Mullets t-shirt on, and Jeff's like, man, your mullet is fantastic. I have to talk to you. Maybe not. That may not have been how it went, but Jeff, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to my audience?
I think that's almost exactly how it went. Yeah, my name is Jeff Byers. I own Creature Replica Toy Company, and we do action figures, cryptid action figures. We have for a few years now, and I've been going to shows like that since one of our action figures is the Bigfoot that Russ Acord carries on his backpack in the show Expedition Bigfoot. So, and Russ is my best friend too, so that makes it kind of cool. I go to a lot of shows with him, and we used to travel for about 4 years with Bob Gimlin of the Patterson-Gimlin film. And Bob is one of the best men I've ever met. The dude he's a cowboy. He's a rough and tumble cowboy, and it was one of the great pleasures to travel around with him. So I got to go to shows I probably wouldn't have went to otherwise to meet people. And for about the last decade, it's just been, those kind of shows are wonderful. Everything from a smaller, Bigfoot type festival to your big horror cons. We just had a pretty good time. Met a lot of people and got a lot of stories.
Right. And I understand from your point of view, you met Bob Gimlin, and now you met John Methenkamp. So, I mean, you've reached the pinnacle now.
It's kind of depressing because where do I go from here?
Right. Right. I mean, your bucket list is complete now, man.
I know. I can stop. I can be done because we're all searching for that. Wait, how far do I go? What do I push it before I'm done? So we're right on the edge.
So how did you and Russell Accord meet?
We were at a show, and Russ had seen some stuff that was going down that wasn't right. And I remember he approached a certain person and said, "Are you okay?" And this was at a show, at a convention, and the man says, "No, I need some help." And so I was there thinking everything was well and good, but I kind of saw some nastiness, and so he reached out his hand, and Russ shook his hand and said, "Well, what do you need?" And so I was right there. My table was right next to Bob, and I'd met Bob, but we weren't like buddies or friends at that point. I'm like, "Well, I know for sure he's a good guy." So I stood up and I said, "I'm with you." And I kind of let that part and those people to the side. And ever since then, I knew Russ was that kind of a guy. And it's easy to stand beside that kind of a guy that would just drop whatever he's doing to help a guy. That takes a lot
Right.
of everything. And that's how I became friends with him. I ended up doing his show. He did a bunch of shows out in Washington, the International Bigfoot Conference. And so I went out there 2 years in a row when he was still doing them before the show. And oh man, he had wonderful. That's where I got to meet Travis Walton and just other people that you hear these stories and you see these movies and stuff. And you're like, I want to meet that guy, and he had those guys. I met Igor Burtsev from Russia. He was one of the original guys that kind of reviewed the Patterson-Gimlin film, and he comes over here all the time. I'm friends with him on Facebook. An older gentleman. He's one of the original people that he had there. I'm like, what are the chances I'm going to meet this Russian guy and get to follow his adventures too now on Facebook, and just people like that. It just became the place where I wanted to be. And the more I was hung out with them guys, the more we became friends and end up, doing stuff in the woods together and all kind of stuff. So we've been a lot of places, but that's kind of how I got to be friends with Russ.
That's awesome. I've noticed since I've gotten into this community, it is very welcoming. There's a lot of people that, we're all trying to find the same answers. And, if you're a good person, I'm a good person, let's get together and try to do something, and I love it. I really do.
There is some of the nicest people ever. I mean, Facebook is a place where people speak things they wouldn't say in person, and you kind of get to see what people are made of on Facebook. But at these shows, just that one time that I was talking about, that's the only time I've ever been anywhere when people weren't just, they're very, I want to tell you my thing and I want to hear your thing, and I just want to see, or I know I've heard you talk about this, so I got a question for you. Or what was great was when we do shows, like we'd go and I'd have this is the Yeti, have all my figures out, sitting here playing with them as we talk. And they would wait until it's over, and people would hang around. And oh my gosh, I've had older people that they're just wanting to run something by you, and they'll wait and they pick somebody that they think is fairly decent. And it always kind of bad because I'm trying to get back on the road to get home before 3:00 in the morning for work Monday. But they will tell you the greatest stuff ever that they wouldn't tell otherwise. And I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody needs to hear this. No, I wanted an opinion from somebody I knew would. And all I can do is I tell them about the guys I run with. My group, I think Mike's okay with me saying it. The Ohio Night Stalkers kind of took me in, and they're the guys. They were on the very first episode of Terror in the Woods. Mm-hmm. The pilot episode was an hour instead of 30. Well, and it was their show, and they've been on. They changed that show to I think it was called These Woods Are Haunted or something. Anyway, they have some shows on, and they took me in and let me be part of that. Where was I going with that? Wow.
I get it. My train goes off tracks too.
It's not been that long of a day. What were we talking about?
We were talking about the community and stuff like that, and the people that you hang out with, and
yeah, and the people that tell you the stories.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what I was telling them, the group that I hang out with, basically what they do about half the time is in Ohio, if people are having problems, and it's kind of it's a funny thing to talk about because where I live here in Southern Illinois, you don't talk about things. People will look at you crossways. I mean, some people come up to you privately, but in public, it's kind of no, we don't talk about that kind of stuff. You can go to Ohio, and there'll be older guys sitting next to you at the table saying, "Hey, I had to move my horses. It's October. That whole spring and fall Bigfoot thing." And one of them guys say, "Yeah, the dogs won't go out. And I don't know how long it'll be this time." And they're having a legit conversation about monsters, which aren't really monsters, but you can't do that here. But anyway, they go and they help people that are having problems. Like they built a cabin and it's out and it's rural where there's no power. And the guy's got a generator he runs for a few hours, before dark, and he's getting stuff thrown at his cabin at
Wow.
2:30 in the morning every night for 2 months. And what do I do? What do I do? So we go out there with them, and they take me along sometimes and spend a couple nights just sitting in the woods waiting. And it turns into this whole, it's not a horror movie. They're not, these things aren't trying to kill you. Right now I'm starting to think there's more in the woods. Well, there is more in the woods, just that, but you're out there for a while, and it kind of becomes a, wow, this is really cool on my land. They kind of come and go here, and it's not so much of a horrific thing as just be aware. And then generally it stops. They'll quit. They're not going to move your house or whatever, so they'll kind of move on. But people understand, and I can share those stories. Like, no, I don't think you're nuts, because this is kind of what we do. So then I get in detail with them, what's going on and what's happening, and then I can share. I only have opinions based on experiences. So I'll share some experiences, and then they leave sometimes feeling like, okay, yeah, I'm not nuts, or something like that. And that's the best part, having a conversation where you can, nobody's telling me, no, that's not what happens, or no, that's not how what is out there, or that's not what you saw. You saw this, and that's not cool. I mean, I get it. Until you see something, you should not believe in it. You should be on the fence about everything. But just because you haven't experienced that doesn't mean it's not real. And you'll have groups of people that say, no, it's this, and no, it's this, and no, it's this, and maybe it's all of them, But
Yeah.
yeah, the people after the shows and stuff, that's sometimes it's the best part. It's like, oh my gosh, because then you'll make friends with them, and it's like, you need to come out here, and I'm like, oh man, okay.
Yeah. I agree with that nobody knows exactly what all this stuff is, because if they did, everybody would know it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so to me, everybody's right.
Yeah.
If your opinion is they're flesh and blood, you're right. If your opinion is they're interdimensional beings, you're right, because we don't know. And
Exactly.
just because my experience is different than yours just means we met these creatures at a different time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it goes hand in hand with, you might have had experience on accident, and somebody else has seen a little bit more strange things than that because they spend more time, out in the woods, and you got the people that are daytime and the people that are nighttime, and they have different tactics. And it's not really like the ghost thing, but I think the energy you put into it is the energy you get back, because I know several of the people that I know that go out to the woods with just a really open heart. I mean, they're not out for any specific thing. They just, and that's what they're putting out is really, I've really seen some things. I'm like, wow, I can't believe it just happened. Well, nobody here had a camera. I mean, we're just here to experience what was going on. And if you're in an area where that's going on, like these people's houses, then if there's continuing nightly stuff, they will, if you're quiet, no lights and nothing, and they will come and be curious. They're like, well, who's the new people? And this is just different things that we've experienced, and then occasionally you find a place where, what's the best? I think it's a special energy place. This might sound weird because multiple things happen there, but they happen consistently. And what are the chances? I've been lucky enough to find one of those places here where I live, and I got to share with those guys a couple places over in Ohio area, and it is really cool because, and then you kind of protect that. But um, man, I go on tangents a bunch. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're making my job really easy right now, and I like that.
By just nonstop talking. Okay. No, thank you. But yeah, I'm proud of the places I've been and the stuff that I've seen, even though you don't really want to talk too much about it, or sometimes it's not good. And there are places like that you go that I think people have been rude, if that's a good word. And what's there is very aggressive, and like more so than just trying to intimidate you and get you to leave. It's more threatening. Um, and then there's other places where they see other things. I told you that I did real estate appraisals.
Correct.
I found an area over here where, for whatever reason, people like to talk about this, and it comes up. And a lot of it's because, there's a lot of properties and a lot of houses that have, ghosts. What do you want to call it? There's stuff going on, whether it be from cursed stuff or playing with stuff you shouldn't, which is a whole other conversation. But these conversations come up. Well, probably it would be about 9 years ago. I was talking to a guy, and he was like, well, we were in an area where I actually have cast a print, and it was pretty close to his house. So I started, it's like, great. This guy's close. I want to ask him some stuff. And he was cool with it. He says, well, I've heard that around here. And then he says, well, what other kind of stuff's running around? At that point, I didn't, I knew about, Southern Illinois got the big birds. That's kind of every once in a while a gene will throw in these things. There's tons of stories around here of that, which is not cool. So we talked about that, and we talked about, Sasquatch and stuff. And he's like, is there anything else? And he kept saying, anything else, anything. I'm like, well, why, what happened? So he started telling me about basically a wolf, an upright wolf. And I was like, I don't know. And at that point, I'm saying, okay, he misidentified something. That's where my mind was 9 years ago. And I said, well, if I ever hear anything, I'll tell you. So now let's fast forward to today. Since then, I have 5 people, and I have 8 encounters. One was just an oversized regular wolf. And I could add one to that. Just this Christmas, there was a man and a woman, and he had seen something, and he was with his wife in the same area, and they seen it again. Seen something different, but she got to see something. They called me, right before Christmas, and totally, ah! And I'm like, oh, just stop or whatever. Well, in the course of these years, in appraising around there and talking to these people, none of them know each other. That's like the cool part. And it's not for me. This is my hometown. I can't start a big thing, But holy crap, this would make a good write this stuff down. Eventually, I might ask them all if they want to talk to the other people around there, just for their own mental, so they know. But these areas,
or a good-looking podcaster with a great mullet.
Yes, I'm looking at one. Yeah, no, you're. Yeah.
I want to hear these Dogman encounters. I really do.
Then I know one lady, because she's very nice, and she's public about it. She takes some beatings over it, but she might be more apt to tell you. Now, she's one I haven't sat down with. I just on Facebook seen her talking about it, and she's aware that there's other people, because we had a little bit of a conversation. But I think she might be. I'll get you hooked up with her.
Heck yeah.
But what none of these people know is that they are either right on or really close to cursed earth. There's a lot right where we're at. I don't want to tell you anything that's around there, because that's going to give away the spots. And I kind of made a promise I wouldn't. But and the only reason I knew that is because I know some other people that have had some problems, and the same problems and reoccurring problems, and I've been on that. And there's desecrated Native American burials there, and there probably has been some other activities go on. But I know for a fact, if you desecrate, if you're a jerk and don't care, then you're probably going to have some problems, because I've seen that many times. And if you're not, you don't know it, then I've seen this play out too, where if you have someone with you that's gifted that can see, then you can go out there and kind of understand that they're a little bit upset and they just kind of want you to leave certain areas alone, and it's fine. And the way that you know they're doing that is because they're having issues in their house, or they're getting pebbles lined up in like a little pyramid on the patio, or they're hearing knocks. And when they go outside, they'll have an area where they hunt that they just get dizzy and sick every time they go out there. And there's just different things, and they don't understand what the heck's going on. Well, once you get out there and you understand that, okay, the house was built on a place, and that ridge over there used to be where they lived. And so now, and this is, I know there's nothing that can sound weird, and the people listening aren't going to take any of this as weird. Around here, I don't tell this stuff, but once you acknowledge they're there and you kind of make a peace with it, and like they'll hunt, but he'll take when he skins a deer, he'll take some out and just leave it out there and say, thank you for letting me be here or whatever. Well, he can hunt out there now. You don't get dizzy. They quit messing with the house. And that day, I jump around, but that day when I went with, I have a friend, Rich, which we will talk about. He is one of the most gifted people I've ever met in my life, and he didn't ask for any of it. He was born with it. So there's no give me the power type stuff. He was born with certain gifts. He's a sheriff's deputy or retired, and I met him during appraisal, and he will, okay, hang on. He's able to see that, and you make that peace, and everything is okay. I mean, he is the go-between. I know a lot of gifted people that can do stuff, but he's who's close to me here, who I talk to a lot when I encounter stuff. So he kind of, the reason is because he'll say, okay, they're telling me you're going to see an owl. That's kind of your confirmation that we're all not nuts. And then I got a call from the guy like the next day, and he goes, I'm right here at my windowsill. It's the biggest owl I've ever seen. He's just looking right at us. And I'm like, well, maybe that's the thing. And since that point, or since that time, I've had many of the confirmation things happen. So I'm used to it now. But at the time, I was like, whoa, that was a movie. Right. Everything that played out that day was a movie. And
I was having this conversation the other day about owls.
Mm-hmm.
I've spent years of my life in the woods. Grew up on a farm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've ever seen an owl.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you ever went out and tried to do an owl call and get a response or whatever?
No, but I hear all these people talk about, oh yeah, I see owls all the time.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking, I don't recall ever in my life seeing an owl in the wild. I don't think they exist. I think it's weird people that have been abducted by aliens are the only ones that ever see owls.
It could be maybe some people can see owls and some can't. Maybe they're not real.
Maybe owls are cryptids.
That's very possible. That's very possible.
No, it's weird. Like I said, I spent all my summers in Southeast Ohio, horseback riding and camping, and I don't ever remember seeing an owl. I would spend my weekends back in our woods at the family farm, camping and whatever. I don't recall ever seeing an owl.
How long ago was this?
When I had this conversation, or
when you were spending that time in the woods out there?
80s and 90s.
I'm trying to
all
think.
Through the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, in the 80s and 90s, I remember, we never saw many owls. I don't know if it had something to do with the amount of rabbits and squirrels that were available for food, but you also never saw a deer. It was a big deal if you saw a deer. And now, here, they are a problem. There are so many deer that it's a problem. I mean, it's just, they're just so thick. You're driving. It's very dangerous here to drive because there's so many deer. And I see more owls now than I ever used to. So maybe it's a food chain thing.
It could be, because coyotes are bad in Ohio.
Yeah.
So, if the coyotes are eating a lot of the rabbits and the small game, it would take away from the owls and they would have to move. That could be it. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's weird that as much time as I've spent in the woods and outdoors that I've never seen an owl.
That is I don't know anybody else that has ever said that. That's kind of cool, or not. I don't.
It's like now it's going to be like my life's mission. I've never seen Bigfoot, but owls and Bigfoot are like neck and neck on
There,
what I want to see in real life.
that would be awesome if you've seen a Bigfoot before an owl. You say, no, that's real. Owls, no. You know,
Well, I have seen things, not Bigfoot, and I've never seen an owl. So yeah, it is weird.
That's
It's really
awesome.
weird.
You know, and that's where you should be with anything. It's like, well, I haven't seen it, so I can. You're on the fence. Yeah, I bet there is, but you can't actually say I believe in owls unless you've seen one. Just like anything, people rip on that's not a thing. That's not a thing. Well, do you believe that it would be cool? I mean, it's pretty. If it happened, and wouldn't it be nice or whatever? Well, yeah, it'd be great. Well, being on the fence is where you should be. If you haven't seen it, you shouldn't. I mean, you can believe it, but you can't wrap your head around it fully until you're looking at it. And then
I
sometimes it
think
takes
from
a
now
while.
on, anytime I see an owl video on the internet, I'm going to put that's AI. That's Photoshop. That doesn't exist.
I love it.
Just like the people do with Bigfoot.
Yep. Okay, so Bigfoot. There are so many videos, and you know that out of the thousands of videos that are on there, a couple of them are real, but they're never going to get the respect they get. They're like, no, I took that. Nah, that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
You know, and people.
I've been saying that for years. Even if the best video ever, you could have video up Bigfoot's nose and see the freaking nostril hairs, and people would still say, "Oh, it's fake."
Yep. Absolutely.
And with AI now, it's hard to tell.
It's all screwed up now because you'll never be able to believe anything. It's almost to the point where you like a video, like, wow, that cheetah was attacking that llama or whatever, and then they find out later it's fake, and I'm like, well, then what? Why am I watching anything?
Right.
If there's a chance it's all just bullcrap. This was great. I can't believe it happened. Oh, it's fake. But
yeah, but maybe it's the government created AI for this specific reason.
That's my theory. You can't steal it. No, it is. Let's flood it. Let's flood it with so much that they won't believe politically, which we're not talking about that, but anything they can say, well, that's not real because look, all this is fake. There's no way any of it's real. And I'm 100% with that. There's people that their job is to create fake content for that very reason.
I agree with you 100%.
But they're probably
and it started about the time when they started coming out talking about the aliens.
Yeah.
You think about when AI really started, like you started seeing more and more of the AI videos. It was about time the disclosure stuff was happening in Congress.
They're priming you for the Project Bluebeam.
Bluebeam.
Bluebeam, yeah. I mean, desensitizing might be a better word. I don't know. Because, what happened with that? They come out and said, okay, we have had contact and we have vehicles or whatever, and then it went away. Why is the world not just like, oh my, constantly, whoa, my gosh, everybody's like, oh, wow, that's awesome. And now we're right back to the same stupid crap.
I saw somebody's talking about that. And they were like, yeah, cool, but I still got to go to work.
Yeah.
I really don't have time to even think about it. I still got to feed myself.
That might be the case. It's wonderful, but I don't have time to, if it affects me right now, like the world's going to change, then great. But if I still got to go to work, then call me whenever he's meeting with them on the steps of the White House, and I'll tune that in.
Right. And that makes sense too. I don't have time for it right now. I do have time to go see Bigfoot though.
Oh, there's always time for that.
Yeah. I've always believed in aliens though. I think I've always believed in aliens because I just don't think that we can be the only ones in that vast universe. So
even when I was little, I'm like, I won't argue about who created the universe. If God created the universe, maybe it's not time for us yet to see that. But if he created everything, he created that too. So it's either all a big giant hoax or eventually we'll meet something else. I don't know. Nobody's going to be able to predict that. Right. But I'm going to tell you right now, if politically right now there's one side needs to create something to distract always, I wouldn't believe it if okay, they're hovering over us. I mean, look at the amount of attention they got just from that stupid meteor or whatever meteor asteroid that cruised by. There were
Yeah.
people. I watched podcasts about these people that were in contact. Like, we're in contact. We've talked to this, and this is what they're doing, and they're coming, and they just ruined themselves.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, what happens, you guys? And these are famous people. Whenever nothing happens, then
Yeah.
you look like nobody's ever listening to your stories again, or having you at their show to speak or whatever. But
Well, and a lot of that is it's for clicks.
yeah.
I need to get my 15 minutes of fame, and if this doesn't pan out, you know what? I still have that viral video.
You're correct. And new people will see it every day. But
Yep.
wow.
Yep. And then it'll get replayed as, this guy was look at this idiot, and you're still getting clicks.
Yeah. Yeah. Just either they're making fun of you or they're not. And that you're just on the hopes that you'll be that guy. It's kind of like buying crypto. You're just hoping that it'll pan out later on. It's like, oh, I said that. I told you that a long time ago.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So earlier you were talking, we got off on this tangent, because that's what I do on my show.
That's the fun part.
Right. Right. You were talking about going out, in Ohio and places. Can you tell us any of the encounters or whatever that you've had?
Yes, I can. I have permission from my guys from the Night Stalkers to talk about stuff. I won't, I don't do names or locations or anything like that, but I can tell you in the past 7 years. My gosh, time flies. 7+ years. There has been anything from visuals to audio. They've had if you're unwanted, there's no really one story. I have several that are pretty cool. I've took my boys with me different times, my sons, because my wife was looking at me because I'd come on, I'd talk about what happened, and she's like, "You're losing your mind. You're what are you doing? And I started feeling like that too. So a couple times I took them, and it worked out that my first epiphany night, I had my oldest with me, and so that was his first time in the woods ever. And I've had them both out with me twice, and they ask me about it once in a while, but they're not. When you have experiences, you're either going to be totally in, like, I got to go back. I got to go back. I got to go back. For me, it's I want to look you right in the eye once, and then I'll leave you alone. That's just me. And then some people I've been with, they never go again. Like, I don't want any part of that. I'm just going to kind of forget that happened. And I'm good with that. It's whatever your brain, and for me, it might be because I'm stupid. I mean, one of the guys I go with, he is of a mind that will move slowly toward stuff. And that's, stupid. But in there are certain areas where it's common, you get a feel for what's there and their temperament, and it's different. It's just different, and there's emotions there. There's highly intelligent, and you can push them to a certain limit. I don't know why they're there at certain times of the year. I don't know, and I'll be real honest. I don't know if they're walking through. I don't know if they come and go a different way. I have theories on things because of some of the stuff I've seen, but they're there, and one of the first times I went, like, if you try to go up I say mountain, it's more like a hill. That experience, there's a certain location halfway up this little ledge that you get up there that they don't want you to go past if they're around, and they'll let you know by the more common intimidation things, like the first time you're around, you might get that long rattling yell, or some of the infrasound, which we can talk about that later, or different things like that, and the pebbles, not hitting you, but hitting the rocks, the mud, I mean, there's a lot of intimidation that's not aggressive. It feels aggressive if you're just there as a stranger and you're just like, it's monsters and I can't believe this, and you're running away screaming. If you know what's there, kind of, then you know when you're being rude. And I call it rude now, and I don't do it like that anymore. You'd go a little further and get some bigger rocks, hit the tree right next to you. And I might as well tell you, one of the times I took my son, I'd had many experiences out in the same area. And this first time I got my son with me. And so he's just amazed. He's like, what's doing this? What's doing the bipedal footsteps, which I think happens when they want you to hear it. And if they don't want you to hear it, you're not hearing it. I mean, I can't get that. That night we had heard some of that going around, and we went up the hill, and I'm with one of my other Night Stalker buddies and my son, and we get up to this certain point, and they don't want us there. And so my son is kind of like, he's taller than me, and he's 26 now. He would have been 5 years younger than that then, about. And he's rattled because those little things are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening type thing. So we're walking up there, and Mike had asked me, goes, should we go back? And we've never been that. We'll sit right there and wait it out and see what happens. That's how we've been. So I said, you know what? Let's go just a little further tonight, because I got my son with me and stuff's happening. I'm feeling like, this is going to be a great thing. So literally take 2 steps. My son's right beside me, and he puts his arm on me. He goes, Dad, and he pulls me around just in time to see the darker than what you would consider a Bigfoot shape. He's got red eyes. That's my first red eyes, which I know they are. If it's a Bigfoot and it's mad, is it mad? They were mad, so maybe that has something to do with the red eyes. Usually it's blue, grayish blue. Sometimes you get the grayish blue, which I think is like young ones, because sometimes when you're in your chairs, and I'll go back to the other story. When we sit there, like we'll have lawn chairs, and we're looking at each other, talking just in a nice, calm voice with no lights. We're just talking, but I'm scanning behind the person I'm talking to the whole time. Well, when you get pebbles at your feet, you're like, well, where's it rolling? Which way does it come from? So you start looking up to where you think it's coming from, and there was a tree, and you started seeing just not big eyes, it's the iris, and out from behind the tree, and then back in. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if it's like a young one. Are we just being kind of played with? That'll happen once in a while. So that's I don't know that this is what I'm saying is that's who it was or how old they were or nothing. It just seems like it. When it's light blue and you get that little playful thing, it's not, hey, leave. It's just like, boop, let's see if he notices that. Oh, and then hide, But the red happened that night. So it came down the side of the hill, and I'm sitting here, I don't know if you can see me, and it was silent. And it stepped onto this little ledge we were on. It was still way taller than us, and it took 2 steps down the hill, still taller than us. And this is a roundish, if it was a Bigfoot, and it stood on the trail, right beside the trail, where the only way for us to get back down. So my son kind of shut down on me. So he put his head like right in my back, which I would have done too, and I'm trying to hold him up. Now I'm usually the coward. I can't be in the back. I'll walk 20 feet ahead, but I can't be in the back. It's just one of my things. If we're traversing a little bit, but anyway, so I'm kind of holding him up, and then the man that I'm with, it's just he's the guy that's the gung ho. It's like he's seen it many times, but never this close. And he was like, red. He says, red eye. I mean, I'm like, oh no. So we're kind of holding on to each other, and we got to walk past it. So, and this is going to sound stupid, but we walked past the trail, and it was arm's length. And I just instantly, from other situations we had been in, I just started apologizing. I said, I'm sorry we came up here. We're going to go back down the hill. And I'm scared to death because I have one goal. I got to get my kid back down to the truck. I have to, if I have to die. And that overrides that,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't uh, losing my mind or anything, because I still was pretty sure that I was okay from many other right there in that same area with probably the same clan, if you want to call it that, because you kind of learn how they act. And so we come down the hill, and way down at the bottom of the hill is my other buddy, Mike, who you should probably meet or talk to. And I said, at my normal voice, I said, "Hey, Mike, could you shine a little blue light? We're coming down the hill." And he's like, "Why are you talking? Why are you making noise?" I said, "We just need a little light." And so he's like, somebody got hurt or something. So he comes toward us. And as we come down the hill, we're not all the way down the hill, but he stops where he's at and didn't tell us. But Red Eyes followed us down the hill right behind us. And he's just sitting there like, holy crap. So we walk past him, and he's still looking at Red Eye. He's like, what is going on? And he was trying to talk. I mean, since it's right there, he's saying, "Hey, we're sorry," or whatever. And anyway, somebody throws a rock, a little bigger one, down and hit his boot. And so he was like, "Well, you don't have to do that." Again, enough confidence in prior reactions. So there was couple things that happened after that that were really cool. So it's halfway up the hill, and if it's the same one, because I didn't see if there was he was the only Red Eyes I seen that first, whatever that was. So as it came down the hill, it moved. This is dark, so we could still see those red eyes, just piercing small irises. And it moved so fast down the hill and sideways that, have you ever heard any stories of people saying it had laser beam eyes? You know how when you take a sparkler and light it?
Never heard laser beam, but I've heard people talk about the red eyes,
like it
but never
moved.
like emitting anything.
Well, no, I mean like a sparkler. When you light it, if you go like this, it leaves that light trail behind it, like a line.
Yeah.
That is what it would be terrifying had I not already had that experience and was away from it. And it moved down the hill like that, and I'm like, that's what people talk about. And it stayed there. I mean, we're like, should we leave? And I put my son on the tailgate of the truck, and then I got up against him so I could feel him on the tailgate, because we're still in the dark. And then I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on. I said, you know what? Let's stay here. So he was on the hill, and that was the first time I got I believe that unless it's a chance encounter, there's always more than one. And I believe they'll flank you. You put yourself in a vulnerable position, they'll always flank you, because I've seen that play out several times. But I got it confirmed because he was right there with the red eyes, and we got foot stomps behind us on the truck, hard foot stomps. And for the first and only time in these years, I got the smell, which I know some great apes can produce a gland under their arms where they can produce a smell or a whatever. But this was a sulfury roadkill type of thing. It was very bang, punch you in the face type of a smell, but it went away. And I am for certain that was just everything they could do aside from grab you to get you to try to leave the area. So once we sat there and talked for a while, they did kind of go away. And the funny part at the end, we were with another buddy that he worked a different shift, and so he had to go lay down about midnight. This would have been probably 2:30 in the morning. So we're making some noise and we're talking after everything settles down, and the bugs come back, which is cool when everything. I think if you're a prey item and something emits a little bit of frequency, which I think everything's frequency, but especially, I think you hold still. I think that sometimes that could be the reason everything just comes down to nothing. And then, and when everything settles down and your heavy feeling comes off and we come back to life and it's loud, I think they're gone or whatever. That's the way we say, well, probably tonight nothing else is going to happen. So that happened. We were talking at our normal loud voices. We had that buddy had been asleep in the car, and so it was just like a comedy thing. He gets out of the car, he's pulling his pants up. He's like, "Oh, guys," he goes, "I thought you guys were going to walk up the hill tonight." And it's like, "Dude, we've been gone for like an hour and a half." And he goes, "You mean you guys weren't hanging around the car?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." He's like, "You've been hanging around the car all night, making noise and leaning against it." And I'm like, "But you know what? It's rocky. It's very rocky where we're at. So there were no tracks. Never thought for a second to like fingerprints or anything because you're so excited. You kind of, but that's not what we're out for anyway. But that was, and my son was with me for that. So then he was the first one of my sons that was like, okay, something's going on here. Dad's not completely lost his mind,
Right.
which is important.
So these red eyes,
Yes.
this wasn't reflection then.
No. Nope.
Or
Not
eye shine.
No, it was totally dark. It's not a reflection. I want to say bioluminescence or self? I don't know. I have no idea how it was. I just know if I was going to fake that, I would somehow get some tiny, precise laser pointers and make a mask or something. It wasn't hurting your eyes. It was just a red iris. It wasn't a big part of the eye or nothing. It was just the center. So that is an area of great energy. There have been battles there. There are stories of battles, series of battles for whatever reason in that area. So it could be, was that a spiritual type thing? The one that we saw close to us, was that physical? The one that made the stomping noises had to be. Whoever was throwing the rocks had to be a physical thing. So, I can't. I'm telling you what I saw. I can't tell you what it was. In my definition, it seemed to be the shape and the giant size of what I would consider a Bigfoot. But was it? I don't know.
Wow.
But talk about moods and emotions. If that was a gorilla, and let's just say I'm making this up. There's breeding or there's birthing going on in this area at that point. That thing's going to come right through all three of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to stop. And there have been several times where you'll get a bluff charge right to the edge and stop and get some huffing and puffing, and it'll rattle you. But if that was something that isn't thinking, it's going to take you out, and that's just my opinion, just because it's happened several times. And I'm thinking, and if you piss them off, they're going to, whatever that is at that point in time, that's how it has reacted several times. So
wow.
Sometimes, okay, the night that I saw the little ones, or we were sitting there, we let that play out for hours, 2 hours or whatever, how long when it started to the end, but it was pushing about an hour before daylight. And that later on in life, there's been stuff happen to understand that maybe they hunt in that area there. And that's a story that I'll let, if you ever talk to my buddy Mike, he can tell you those stories, because I don't want to ruin that.
I'd absolutely like to have him on. I'd thought about reaching out to him after talking to you anyway.
Oh, I want you to, because I will tell you that all he uses is one parabolic mic with a digital recorder. They seem to not be influenced by that much frequency. If you take infrared, forget it. If you got gizmos and all kind of crap going on, they're not coming. That's just from that many years of experience. That's just for what I'm at. I don't mean other people are, but it seems like one or two recorders going doesn't change it. So every time we get sounds, and especially you mentioned coyotes a while ago, people say, well, they run with coyotes. Well, I'm like, that's stupid. Well, a lot of times you'll get sounds within coyotes. So have you heard of David Ellis, the forensic retro? So Mike is buddies with him. So he runs everything through the spectrograph or whatever, spectrometer. I don't know what it is, spectrograph or something. So he can show you. And we're like, this was really cool. And he just got, and I'll let him tell you the stories. He just got some really good sounds the other day that was like a person. And this was in the fall before it got cold. And he's like, listen to this, what do you think? And I'm like, does anybody live around there? He says, well, no, not really. And I said, well, just go ahead and send him to David. Well, then you're like the normal thing that he says for Ohio. He'll take that, or he'll take the coyotes, and he will break them out. Like, here's the little wave down here, and here's what a man said. Here's you guys talking. Here's your lines. Here is a baboon signature. He's like, what country are you guys in? This is Ohio. So this is like the highest, loudest baboon that peaks above it that's making this sound. And he'll pull that out of these coyotes. So I'm like, do they? Or do they just stir them up and and then they communicate with them, because we'll be in a bottom or something, and the coyotes will go nuts. Well, then there's stuff answering. There's one will go and one will go down here, and then one will answer, and you're like, those coyotes are weird. Well, maybe they stir them up so that they can holler at each other like, hey, there are people here. That's just a theory because it's happened several times, but it is the coolest thing. And Mike has all those. Like, if you talk to him, he has all of that he can play, and it's like, no, this is a baboon. And it's so cool because when he does a presentation, he'll play some of those sounds, and I love it. Audio, people don't. It's not really a respected type of a thing, but being that I was there at some of these and heard it, and then he sends me the clip. He's like, here it is, and here's where he says it is, and here's just it, and it's a baboon signature. It gives you goosebumps. But also, the greatest thing about David is he will pull out. You give him this thing, and we had this. I'll be honest. I made a mistake, and I banged some rocks together one time because we left that area once, a different area, which things happen quite a bit. And when we got in the truck and we got the windows down, we're being quiet. We left. Something took rocks and went bang, 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 bang. And I thought, was that a signal to each other that we're leaving? And so the next time we were there, I did that. And one of the other guys did it real hard. Well, I was standing right by a tree, and they hit that tree with a rock right after we did that. It's hard. And I mean, it rattled me, but we stayed around there, and we never leave. I mean, them guys' trucks, he'll tell you a story. They have vehicle damage because of rocks. So I want him to tell you the stories. Anyway, David took that night, and he pulled out of the distance. There was hollering going on, and he can tell you distances, which is crazy. He's like, okay, listen to this. He calls it popping and like a grunting that apes do. And he said, you had one within 10 feet and one about 20 feet away. And they were talking that whole time you guys were there. And he pulled that out. It's like type of things. And I'm like, you can't, goes 10 feet. I mean, oh my gosh. But you got that dude who is a professional. I mean, he's the man, and he's telling you, no, that was right there. Here it is. The distance, everything. That is so cool to have that kind of confirmation, but right. Again, I'm telling you stuff that kind of belongs to Mike. He said I could talk about it. I don't want to steal his thunder on anything. He'll probably play some stuff for you or send it to you to play or whatever. But wow, that part of it is cool. They have yet to get the very first night I went. I met those guys at a convention. And they were sponsoring Cliff Barrickman at a thing, and they met me that day. And like, you want to go in? We'll sponsor his whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I never. So I met them that way, and they're talking. And I'm like, I've had experiences of my own, but I've never quote specifically went on like a little Bigfooting adventure all night. So I said, I need some street cred to say I went. That was one of the greatest nights ever. I mean, I got yelled at twice from probably, say 5, 10, 15, maybe 25 feet, a little bit less than 25 feet away from me.
Holy cow.
We had a little, we called it base camp up the side of a hill. We had broke off and went different places, but they were having all kinds of activity. Then we had to break down because that night he had radios and we were communicating, and it was kind of fun. It was like you're playing investigator. And when we broke down, we took several trips up the hill to grab our stuff down. Well, the last time we got the last of our stuff and come down, there was an old wood. I don't know if they had a mine there or whatever, but there's a structure, and something took its hand. It was a thud and just goes whap and hits the side of that little structure that's dilapidated. It scared me to death. I'm like, okay, that wasn't, just relax. That was something, no wind or nothing. And we got all the way down that hill and loaded up our stuff, and 20 feet away, that thing yelled the first time, and it literally, when you're at a competition where they have the bass and the cars going, and it just like, brr, brr, brr,
yeah,
it rattled my lungs, and it sent an adrenaline through me that was like, it was terrifying, but it was holy shit type of a thing. And I stopped, and I was with my other guy here, and he was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we got that. And it did it again. and I got a second one from the same thing, and you could hear a voice through it. And if you asked me if it was a yell or a roar, it was all of it. It was all of those sounds, but I you felt it more than you heard it. I'm like, what kind of a massive long thing could create that kind of a sound? I wish they could have got one of them, and I wish everybody at Bigfoot's could get that once, because that was a night that I was like, I got to come back because I have no idea what happened. And I rode that high for a long time. I mean, it was like, this is the greatest crap ever. This stuff's real, and I just got my own proof, and then I had to go back. And since then, those are probably, if not, some of my best friends I've ever made.
Yeah.
It's like having a war buddy. It's like we've stood right there in the middle of. We never ask for stuff. We never, not really provoke. Sometimes they'll do a call blaster thing, and I don't like it at all. But sometimes when something's dry, you can stir something up, even if it's just one answer. But I most likely just like to sit and just kind of be quiet, And in the course of this, there's other stuff that happens, which I think leans more toward paranormal. But it's like, you don't know where you're at. You don't know what's happened there. And I don't sit somewhere like ghost hunting where I say, is there anybody here? I don't open any doors, but I'm sitting there listening. And can you manifest something just by wanting it? I don't think so, or everybody would do it.
There's some people who say you can, though.
I know. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be. What are the chances you could go for several years to the same area, and 50% of the time or more you have things happen from really amazing? That was my only nighttime sighting, and within just a few feet up on another hill from there was my only daytime sighting in that area. Which, if I had another story, I'd probably tell you that one.
Well, let's hear it.
It was cool. Okay, so here, there's another lady that you need to have on. She's a doctor, and she is very gifted also with remote viewing. And I met her at, I had went over to Ashmore Estates. It's a haunted, I don't know if it was for kids or if it was a hospital, but it's in Ashmore, Illinois. And I had went over there because I got a good friend. His name's, I don't want to use any names. And
that's fine.
And he's kind of handles people from shows. So they're going to film a show at this place. But before that, they're going to have this little public thing. And I went over that night and just was going to tell them, hey, I can't do your show in Kentucky. I got, I just doesn't work. Well, it ended up, they were like, you come in here, just come in and do the thing with us. And I'm like, well, I was totally shut off. And I didn't really at that point know much about me. So I was shut off and nothing happened. And I went and did their show in Kentucky because I didn't have the heart, because it's like a $225 ticket to be part of that group that goes through that ghost thing. I mean, they make a big deal out of it.
Wow.
And so they let me go with them, which was cool, and walk around or wherever. Anyway, before it all happened, they get you in a room, and the people are there, and they give them a little presentation about the building. And I sat in the back because I'm not, not part of the group. Well, a lady walked in, and Rebecca's, she's good looking, younger enough to make you nervous. You know what I mean? When you don't know
Not
her.
me. Not me.
But she comes and she sat right in front of me, and I'm like, why did this lady come and sit right in front of me? And so it was great because after a little bit, she turns around and she smiles at me. She says, "Are you here for the ghost hunt?" And I'm like, "No, I got to talk to the guys." "Oh, okay." So it was about a minute, and she turned back around. She goes, "There's like 2 people in this room of 60 people that have stuff going on, and you're one of them. Do you know that?" And I'm like, "I kind of know that, but not really." But she says, "Okay, I'll talk to you later." And so I knew she was gifted. It turned out she was one of the guides that went through the building with them. And I didn't talk to her much, but as we're leaving, because they had to do their filming late, and so we're leaving and we're outside, and I talked to her because I had to. She said that. So we ended up talking for about maybe 30 minutes or something, or maybe closer to an hour out there. Did not talk about Bigfoot at all. talked about ghosts, and we talked about her abilities and kind of what she saw going on with me a little bit. And I thought, this is a very nice lady, and we Facebook because I'm thinking I'm going to see this lady again. She's just one of those people that you're like, I want to be around when she does her thing sometime. I want to experience this. And it turned out we had done all kinds of stuff since then. We'd filmed ghost stuff and been places, and I've had a lot of good stuff with her. But this whole story about me, that was like I don't know when they did it, October. So in November, I get a message from Rebecca. She says, "Hey Jeff, how are you? Can I message or can I call you?" And I was like, "Oh crap!" This lady wants to call me, which that's making me feel like I feel good about myself. It just, anytime something like it happens, it kind of can rally you. It's like, I don't know if I should be talking to anybody, So she makes some small talk for like a minute. And she goes, "Jeff, I was looking at you and your family." And then I had made her explain to me what that meant. And with her, it's cords. So she talked to me. We're friends. So that developed this cord. Well, she can look at you and follow cords out to your family and anybody you've met and look at them, which that's the only person that explains it that way, but it made sense to me. That was my first experience with like remote viewing type stuff. So we talked about the family for a second, and she says, "You didn't tell me about your friends in Ohio." Now, keep in mind, we had never talked about anything but ghosts. And so I said, "Yeah, some of the best friends I've ever made are in Ohio." And she goes, "That's not what I'm talking about." And I'm like, "They're the only friends I made in Ohio." And I'm not getting with what she's saying because I'm not thinking about that because I'm a little bit nervous talking to her. So she finally says, "What do you do when you go to Ohio?" And I said, "Well, hunting, kinda." And it's a long story. We him-hawed back and forth in that manner for another minute. And finally, she says, "Jeff, what the hell am I looking at?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "What do you do when you're over there?" And I said, "Well, I Bigfoot." And she goes, "What am I looking at?" And she followed cords because remember I said we had been in these areas for many years and spent enough time with these specific whatever they are, and she followed cords to them. And you want to talk to this lady and have her on a show. They know that she's looking at them. She literally made a little bit of a connection. Now later on, she went to that area, so she had a connection for a while. She could talk to these things, or how that might be not the right word, but she could back and forth with them a little bit. So I told her, and we started having a conversation, and she told me about 5, and she told me about the clan and 2 young ones, and she told me about a rogue that was recently kicked out. Okay, so let me backtrack a little bit. The week before she called me, it was warm in November, and so I had been looking at the satellite views, and I had found a logging road that you could access up on top of this mountain. Now on the ridge, you really don't have any luck there. You want to put yourself in the most, this is not me being like, I'm the expert Bigfoot. No, in my experiences, you put yourself in a very, very vulnerable place, and they're more apt to come closer. So why would they come to a ridge? So I'm like, I want to go up that ridge because it's freaking awesome up there. And someday we'll talk about how everything has a reason. But I found this place. Well, we went up there during the day. That right there was my only daytime sighting. And I'll go back to that story after I tell you that she started telling me about this rogue. And she says, "What is it with you and this rogue? There's one up on top of a hill." And she told me it's to the, whatever it was, south or west. And she's like, "There's a mountain over there, top of that hill." She said, "That's where he's at." And she says, "You've been up there." And I'm just blown away. I'm like, what the hell? And then you start feeling violated. It's like, how do you I don't remember giving you permission to look at me, which is fine. I mean,
she's digging through your underwear drawer, man.
Yeah, it's like, if you can look at that, then what else are you? And then everybody that says that will tell you, "Well, I don't look at that kind of stuff." Really? You can get that far and you don't take a peek? So anyway, she she knew kind of some stuff that was going on up there. Okay, so then I can tell you that was kind of my confirmation that what happened when we were up there happened, because on that day, for whatever reason, I was drawn up to that area. And the one I seen that day, we were driving. There had been a storm, so there's a little open area. It's a big, mature.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, all right. So we're up there where the storm damage was, and there were several trees that were. They've been dead for a little bit, so they're gray, and they're probably, the highest one's probably 20 feet tall, but they're snapped off where the storm went through. So we walk by there, and I see one of those trees is a different color, and it looks just like a thin Bigfoot. And I remember laughing, going, "That's the kind of crap where people take pictures of." I said, "When we come back by here, I'm gonna take a picture of that." Well, the thing literally 30 feet stopped. The trail stopped, so they stopped the truck, and I said, "Oh, good, I'm gonna hop out." So I hopped out, and I got my camera up there, and I'm like, "What the hell? Where's it at? Where's it at?" It was a tan. I don't want to say Chewbacca looking, because that gives you too much of a thing, but it was a thinner, sideways tan Bigfoot, because it had to be, because it was completely gone. It was totally different colors, beautiful, like shimmery type of a goldish, tannish. And in the shadow, you could tell in its face and by its hand. I mean, you could see the shadows, which made it look just like a Bigfoot holding still. Okay. And I ran down there because it was just as tall as this limb that was sticking out. And I ran down there and had one of the people I was with take a picture of me. And so I stood below this limb, and it was 4 feet above. I'm 6 foot tall, 6'2", so it's 4 or 5 feet above me is where this limb was. So that's how tall this thing was.
Holy cow!
So massive, and hard to believe. And you're, anybody listening is like, yeah, whatever. Well, you want confirmation, so I'm like, we got to come back here tonight. So we don't generally go real far away from the vehicle. I mean, 2 or 3 minute walk. I mean, it's kind of stupid not to, but we went this logging trail and we took it further that night, because there was 4 or 5 of us that went walking up there, and a couple of people stayed back by the vehicle. So we walked way down that trail, and we had heard some things. Doesn't mean a thing. Thought we saw some eye shine. Doesn't mean a thing. None of these things mean anything. So like I was telling you earlier, I like to be in the front. So I literally was 20 feet ahead of everybody, just walking slow. And that was my second time of being hit with infrasound. This time it was like when you get drunk on tequila. I mean, when it like this, put me right down on the ground. But this time was different. I literally, my tear ducts just exploded. I bawled as hard as you could bawl for probably 5 or 10 seconds. I mean, just incredible emotion. And it was obvious that something hit me, which had to be an infrasound. I mean, it hurt. It scrambled me for a little bit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so these guys are wondering what's going on when they caught up to me. So I get up off the ground, and I'm like, well, when I was down there, I'm like, okay, I get it. Please take it off me. You're there, or whatever. So it pulls off of you just like it comes on, and you're like, whoa. And then I've had the misfortune to be around people that have had strokes. One guy was pushing. We were construction, and he was pushing this little sand tamp, and he literally went eyeballs open into the sand, and I thought he died. And it turned out he needed a stent, so the blood was cut off to his head. Well, when he come back, I called the boss. I'm like, I don't want to say his name because he passed away since then. This was years ago, but I got the boss, made a big deal about it. Like, oh my gosh, so they're all collapsing on this. Well, right before they got there, this guy hops up and he starts shoveling where the sand, shoveling like a madman. And the boss, first person to pull up is the boss. He's looking at me like, you dumbass. The ambulance is cut. What is going on? And I'm like, I swear he was dead. He was dead. I was, doing everything I could to get him. And it turns out your body throws an adrenaline to kick you out of that. And you do have this adrenaline rush when you come out sometimes. I think more times than not, that's how your body saves you. So anyway, he had to go get a stent. A couple of days later, they found out that really happened. I didn't look like a dumbass. Anyway, that adrenaline rush, what I saw there was the most like what I experienced. And this is the first time I ever made that connection back and forth. because I don't really talk about this. But you have that adrenaline rush, and then you're not scared anymore. But the whole night, it's like, okay, we had a bunch of stuff happen. Was it just me in my head? Was it my brain? You know, you don't really know. I thought I saw something, but there's not really any one thing that's a confirming thing. So at that point, this is where we're at. There's probably I don't know, 5 miles. There's a house 5 miles from there down there. We're in areas we aren't supposed to be in. I mean, we're trespassing. I think they shut those areas off for this very reason. I mean, when the government don't want you there, there's probably a reason. So you have to, if you have to go to these unwanted areas, where nobody is. So anyway, do you think there's anybody there doing this? What happened next was we had a rock thrown at us, and you could hear the darn rock coming. It was crashing through limbs. And we're like, what is that? What is that? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, for once they're going to try to, something's here. And it landed 50 feet because we paced it off or close to it as we walked back. And it was a cinder block sized boulder. I mean, it was a heck of a crash when it's like, bam, and it rolled down a thing. And we're around trees. Nothing fell. It was thrown. So was somebody there with a catapult at that time in the early morning to throw a boulder at you on the whim? Somebody might be walking that night. No, but it had to.
You don't carry a catapult with you every time you're out in the woods?
Generally, no. But it had to have thumbs, and it had to be big. And at that point, we decided we needed to probably move away from there. But when you add all of that stuff up for that night, you start thinking, I think I really did see one. And I think I was meant to be in that place. And if you want to go to if you want to go to a more, okay, so I don't have to tell you anything if I just tell you this story. So I am at Ohio State Reformatory, and this was 2 years ago. Last year? I think it's been 2 years. So I was there with Russ at an event, and we'd been there for 2 days, and I help Russ at his tables when he lets me go, which is really fun. So he's shaking hands with a guy, and I'm in the back behind the table there, because they line it up right down the cell block, both levels, and it's really kind of fun how they have their events. And this guy looks at me in the eye, and then he looks back at me, and he goes, "You're why I'm here today." And I was like, "Whoa, hey," and I make a joke about it. I'm like, "What did I do?" And he comes back to me, and he comes right up to me, and he looks at me, and he goes, "You can do stuff." And I said, I'm just starting to understand it. I don't talk about it. I'm like, oh, I know people, because people have done that before. They'll tell me stuff about me. So I'm ready for that conversation. And I'm like, really wasn't planning on talking about it, but okay, so there's that. So he goes, "When did you get hit with infrasound?" And I'm like, well, it's happened a couple times. He goes, "No, the one time real hard. When was that?" And so I told him. And he said, this is something he said, which is a whole other conversation. He looks at me and he goes, "When did you see the UFO?" And I look at him, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm going to tell this guy. And I said, it was within that week. And he goes, "When did you start being able to do stuff?" And I'm like, stop. This kind of gets you kind of emotional when you talk about it, but I was like, I'm not real comfortable with this conversation. And he goes, all he did is he was shaking my hand. He goes, "Dude, that you were meant to be there that night, just so you know. That was why you were there." And I'm like, okay, so here's where you're at. This guy's incredible, and this is really cool, and it all makes sense. Or this guy was a very gifted guy, but he was into some of the dark stuff. So what if all of this crap is meant to make me believe certain things to lead me in a certain direction? Maybe it's not good. I mean, and I think about that sometime, because I got a buddy down in Tennessee that does podcasts. I'm sure you've seen him. And to him, there is no such thing as a ghost. It's all demons. Everything's demons. Because whatever his religion is, I don't know what it is, they don't believe in, it's either dead and heaven or hell or nothing. And that's fine. He's a heck of a good guy. He tells what he shares is wonderful. I don't believe that. I believe there's a in between, and because of the other stuff we haven't talked about yet, stuff hangs around that don't have to be demonic. It can just be trapped for a little bit, which maybe a little suffering here on earth and you need moved on. Maybe that's your purgatory. That's what I have to believe that, because I've kind of seen that kind of stuff play out in my experience, and I only have opinions on my experiences. So anyway, this guy was into some darker stuff, so maybe he was told that to tell me that. Maybe he knew this private stuff about me for a reason to try to get me to hang out with this dude. So I got his number and I thought, man, he's really cool, but I haven't ever contacted him back because of the maybe, just because of the maybe. So, but that was really cool. I mean, when he told you that, it can rattle you, and it's all this, oh my gosh, this is great. And it's so easy to try to go down that path. It's like, I want to know more. Tell me more. No, stop. Were you born with this ability? No, I asked for it. Then probably it came from this is just my opinion. Probably it came from somewhere else. If you had asked for it, you got it, but the person that or whatever gave it to you, there may be a little payment on the back end.
What did you have to do to get it?
Yeah, it's great now, but later on, maybe I've watched too many movies, but I just think that if you weren't born with it, can it happen just like with me, or was it always there and I just became aware of it? I don't know. And when I say that, I'm just going to tell you so the rest of the story is there, because I know I jump around. I do appraisals, and sometimes stuff gets my attention, and it's only been since then that I've ever paid attention. And I'll be in a house and I'm writing my stuff, and I'll have cobwebs on me or something. I'm like, cobwebs on my ear, and then I'll stop and I'm like, if that's somebody that needs help, do it again. And so tickles your ear, and I'm like, okay. So I'm, and sometimes my ears will ring real bad. Sometimes it's negative and dark, and I can't, there's nothing I can do there except for sometimes be hurt. But I get out of there as fast. I think I'm more susceptible to that, and I have been put on my butt from that stuff. So whatever it is, I can feel. So I've kind of saw a couple times, kind of heard a couple times, but I can, feeling is my thing. So something gets my attention. It's different ways that it does it. And if somebody needs some help, maybe that's their time to be done with purgatory. So I'll just tell you my story. Since all this started happening, I did an appraisal for my buddy Rich, who I really want you to talk to. He was born, in his family, they are born with very powerful gifts, and his is sight and other things. He doesn't just see some, he sees all. It's kind of the bane of your life. Growing up, it's a giant pain to have people trying to get your attention constantly. It's like a movie. Being with him is a movie. Every time I'm with him, it's a movie. But one of his powers is, and I've told you earlier, that if the government knew how powerful he was, they'd come and get him. His remote viewing is, literally, I can call him and say, "Do you have time to look at me?" And he'll say, he don't need me to hold still, but he'll jokingly say, "Yeah, hold still for a minute." And he'd say, "Okay, are you standing inside the front door of the house and there's a fireplace to your left that somebody's painted white?" And at first it blew my mind. I could never get past the fact that he's looking through my eyes right now. I was like, how, what? So at this point now, I'm just like, okay, you found me. And I don't ever tell him anything of what I had experienced. I just say, look at me. And he'll say, "Is there a door right on the other side of that fireplace?" "Yes." And he'll say, "Is it a bedroom?" And I'll say, "Yes." And then he'll say, "She's in there." And then I'll open up and say, "Yes, that's where this trying to get my attention. So what's going on?" So he can talk to them. And I've done it. He's been in Illinois. I've been in Ohio. And he's done this because it's the fun. It's not fun. It is fun. It's interesting as heck. And I think it's okay if something's interesting. I don't push it past this limit of what happens. So in this case, it was a lady that was still at this house, but her husband was a bad guy. he's still there too, keeping her there. It was a bad situation. It's a right in this little town. I'll just tell the story. It's in this little town. I was doing this appraisal right in the middle of town. They remodeled this country 2-story or story and a half house. Totally gutted and remodeled it. And when I pulled into this town, there's the little city cop sitting there. He knows the different cars in, and he kind of seen me pull off and go down a street. So instantly he has to drive around. So he ran around once, and he ran around twice. And then the county cop went around. And so when the county cop by, I got my clipboard, and I always walk out and say, hey, I'm the appraiser, and here's what I'm doing. Here's my name, and everything's cool. So they're very aware I'm there, aware that I'm at this house. So it played out. This lady, Rich, is talking to her. This is ghost. This is a person. And he says, it's bad because she's an abused wife. Her husband was very bad. And he said, I think this lady he's really injured her, like almost killed her a couple times. He's telling me a story. It's like, it's bad. He goes, this guy's an ass. And so I couldn't used to do it. So, but once I got some confidence, so what I do basically is, in all honesty, and people say, no, people can't do this. It's not a thing. Well, until you've experienced something, you don't believe it. People say, you can't do that. How many times have I heard that? And then I meet a person that can do it. Well, you can't just take a picture of a ghost and 10 other people can't. That's a gift. And I've met 2 people that can do it. 12 people in a row take a picture and the same thing, they got a guy. And nobody else does. That's a gift, okay? And people say that's not possible. Yes, it is. So I will, when he tells me that, I'll say a few prayers, and it's like I'm like the last guy that should be able to help anybody. I mean, I got to fix myself, and it's like, can you look past that for a minute? And for this specific intent, first I'm going to say a prayer or some prayers to get this guy out of here, and so this lady can see you, and then I'll say a prayer that she can see you and turn to you, and then I'll say some stuff to her. It's like, ma'am, just turn and know you're forgiven and it's okay. And whatever the situation is, it's always different. And then I'll say some prayers for this intent. And sometimes there'll be this is going to sound stupid, and people will be like, he's lying. Well, no. Sometimes there's a temperature change. Sometimes the light will get warm. One time I had 2 cats, which I appraised the house, and I know if there's animals there. And 2 cats came and stood right, one on each side of my feet, and looked at me while I was doing this. And I'm like, okay. And what was going on there? And just different things will happen. So anyway, it got warmed up, and my ears quit ringing, and I'm like, okay, I think that was good or whatever. And sometimes he'll call me back if they want to tell me something, and sometimes they won't. Well, in this case, this lady was very thankful, and she moved on, and she goes, tell Jeff he'll see a rainbow today. And it's not a cloud, there's no clouds in the sky. And I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. Or sometimes it'll be like we were talking about owls. It'll be you'll see this owl or something else I'll tell you about here in a minute. So anyway, when I left there, on my way home, I saw a sundog. There was just a couple clouds and all this stuff, so I saw the rainbow, which could that be whatever. Anyway, on the way out of town, I see this young cop. And if I ever write a book, this is going to be in the book. It's one of the stories. And I pull in there, and I said, hey, I'm the appraiser or whatever, and I'm giving him some small talk because I said, hey, just so you know, I have to go around and take 6 pictures of houses that I've recently sold to use as comparables in my appraisal. So I'm going to be looking sneaky around it, and we laughed, and I got feeling comfortable, and I don't talk about it to anybody, this kind of stuff. But all of a sudden I was pushed to ask him a question. I'm like, why the hell would I talk to this guy? So I said, do you know anything about the house? I said, no. He said, no, I just came to this town. He goes, I know the guy that worked it over. And so I told him about the lady and the guy and what happened. And he's very quiet. He's like, he don't want to talk about this at all. He's just looking at me like, just leave, just go away. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll be around. I'll get out of town. Okay, nice to meet you. Thank you. And I left there going, why did I talk to this policeman about this? I look like a dumbass, which, but since then, I found out that them conversations happen for a reason sometimes. So anyway, I'm on the other part of this little town of probably, I don't know, there's 1,000 people in the town. So I pull off in this little church parking lot to see where the next one was, because I always just covert. Cause people hate when you drive by their house and take a picture. You know, everybody's looking out the window. Like, what the heck are you doing? So I pull by to see where I'm going. Well, this young cop pulls in there a little faster, whatever, and stops. And I was like, I'm just here for a minute. And this quiet, subdued policeman says, "Dude," and I was like, "What?" And so he says, "I just talked to my buddy at the gas station about the house, and he told me he knows nothing about it except for the fact that there was a lady there that almost died twice from her husband beating her." And he goes,
What?
And he goes, "Dude, you're blowing my mind because," and here's why we had the conversation, why I felt the need to pull in there. He goes, "I've had some stuff happen recently and I'm kind of on the fence and I don't know what to think." But he goes, you're really making me think maybe that really happened." And I'm like, that's why we had the conversation. So I instantly felt less stupid. And so anyway, I had my confirmation right there. I mean, he asked the dude, that happened. And I had to instantly call Rich back and I'm going to say, "You're not going to believe the conversation I just had." And he laughs. He always laughs because he knows what he does is real. But you know, and if some people say there's no way any of that could have happened. That doesn't exist. Well, unless I'm crazy, unless demons are trying to make me think something that's not, you know, or something. I mean, there's always, or I could be nuts, but what are the chances there's two of us that are nuts at the same time, you know, or and I didn't do anything but felt somebody tickle in my ear and say a prayer. And I don't think that's bad. I don't think I'm messing with anything I shouldn't by saying a prayer for somebody. Right. I can't. And there's been too many confirmations, you know, there's the touching and what else?
Well, Jeff, we've been doing this for well over an hour. I would love to have you back on the show because I feel like we have a lot more to talk about.
I had no idea that I could go on like that. So I would love to come back because it's almost like therapy to tell somebody that's actually not sitting there going, "You're lying," you know, or whatever. So thank you for that.
But before we end this episode, let's talk about Creature Replica.
Okay.
So tell my listeners about Creature Replica.
Okay, Creature Replica started. I have two friends here where I live that are partners in it, and the fourth partner is Gene St. Jean. Now, Gene St. Jean lives out in where the bears are in New Jersey, the real bears, like in the forest part of it. Gene ran NECA. He ran McFarlane Toys. He was the head sculptor. He is arguably one of the best traditional sculptors in the world. I mean, he is anything that you saw like in the 1990s. You'd go to Walmart and all of a sudden toys and sports figures, it's like they had this detail and this articulation, like what the hell happened to toys? Toys have just went amazing. Gene St. Jean invented all that. He was the sculptor that changed the world in the 90s. So it kind of became, I don't want to tell stuff from him I shouldn't, but it was a situation where he would run a model shop and there were other sculptors and he found himself fixing more than doing himself. And since then, everything's kind of went to digital. They scan you and it's this crappy, watered down version of things. He decided maybe he needed to go out on his own. And so he was doing stuff for Diamond Toys and he just stayed busy doing everything. Action, anything that's a superhero or a monster or Gene. So I was talking to him, we decided to start a toy company so he could still do his traditional sculpting. And you know, what better shot do you have at doing something really cool than with somebody of that caliber? I mean, he's just a freaking genius. But we can't buy licenses. You know, you got to buy those licenses to do the stuff. So what's something that you can do that's not licensed because it don't exist? Is we have we did a Yeti, which this is the Yeti that's got, I don't know if you're familiar with that kind of stuff. There was an old Shipman Himalayan adventure. You've seen the footprint with the ice pick by it. It's like famous they found at that point. So that footprint is on his base. and one of the goats that they discovered up in that area, and that's what he's based on. And he's a little bit more pop culture because in the end, you got to sell stuff. You have to sell toys. So he's like the pop culture Yeti.
Right.
They're not, probably not white and not this ferocious, but he is a good chunk of plastic, and it's fun, So we sell some of them. We've did a Rougarou, which I have a story about, that are doing Rougarous and selling them down south where the Rougarou is, which you can't sell them because it's taboo. That's another story. Different versions of them. I did a Horror Hound action figure that was for Horror Hound magazine in Cincinnati. It's their mascot. So he's the only cryptid that's kind of not a real cryptid. It's kind of a legend made for that show, or for that event. They have a magazine, and they do 2 cons every year, which in the Midwest, their Horror Hound weekend is the biggest horror con, and they have big stars, and it's like a not a scare fest, Steel City Con, or what's the day? I can't think of some of them other big shows. Anyway, there's several. They're not several, but there's a few big shows. And we did some variants. We did some paint differences and some different heads on things. But the main thing that's cool is the Bigfoot, which we did several heads on him. But the one that's on Expedition Bigfoot on Russ's backpack it was our flagship for the show. And he carried that with him before the Expedition Bigfoot show. And we got some exposure with that. And he called me. He goes, "Would you care if I left that on there?" And I'm like, "Let me think about that." Yes, please. I didn't tell my family. I just made him watch a show. You got to watch this. Russ is in it. You got to watch. It's going to be cool. And so Zach, the cameraman, he's a really nice guy. And so a lot of them scenes, like, it'll start with that backpack and Russ walking away. So it starts with the, it's like, bam, there it is. And they're like, what's he doing on there? So that was a very big deal. And I'm very thankful to Russ for that. But, that's been a few years since we started it. We're still selling. I had 5,000 of those, and now the show's going good. I have like 200 of them left, and it's bugging me. It's like, wow, I got to save a couple of these for my kids. Maybe I want one for my grandkids. And especially, we have a box that, because he's always called him his Scout. So I have a special box with special artwork, and he's the Scout figure. And I'm running out of the Scouts. But anyway, yeah, and creaturereplica.com is the website if you want to go look at them. And it's all one word, Creature Replica, just like it sounds. But if you look up Bigfoot toy or Yeti toy, you're going to get to the Creature Replica site. It used to be, whenever we were all over the place, it was good. And we have a whole bunch of aliens and a whole bunch of other cool cryptids the protos are ready, but we're just kind of waiting to see how shipping and tariffs and how that kind of stuff plays out before I wouldn't want to get a boat, and you can't get them done in America. That's what sucks, because I went into this saying we're going to do it here, but you can't. That doesn't exist here. So you have to get that done overseas. Now the families are nice, and once you get to meet them, it's kind of it's a good situation, and they don't have anything to do with politics. It's just their business, And we use the same factory that everybody uses. NECA and McFarlane, everybody. It's the same factory, same people. So it's same quality stuff. But we still have several of each for sale, and just waiting to get our next ones going. And it's been been a ride. But
awesome.
People in the warehouse.
Yeah, that's what drew my eye whenever I saw you up in Salina. Was all the figures up there, and like, I got to talk to this guy. And then, yeah, I think I am kind of that way. Like, I'll pick somebody, and like, I'm drawn to them, and because I kind of ignored Russell Accord to come talk to you.
Wow, that's compliment I had in a long time.
I really did. I come up and I introduced myself to both of you, and then I just kind of started talking to you, and yeah.
I think maybe were you wearing something that had your podcast name on it? because I
had my shirt, one of my shirts on.
I rarely meet the people like of stuff that I've seen. I think that's cool. I mean, that's kind of a chance meeting, but it was really cool. So to me, that's something special. But yeah, I will have to acknowledge that. I mean, it's like, dude, I know about you,
Yeah, that was cool. I actually messaged some of my podcast buddies. I'm like, hey, somebody knew who I was.
Absolutely. Well, you can play that part. It's like, yeah, I knew as soon as I seen you. It's like, I've heard of that, and because there's a lot of shows, and there's some really good ones, but then there's also some that are the host doesn't really. It's not fun to do, and it's not really interesting. I mean, I'm starting to understand doing this with you now that it's really cool when you throw the question out there and then just let me spill my guts about stuff, and then maybe afterwards there's a couple questions. I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, looking and seeing how this played out, because unless I just get totally off on a tangent, hey, back up. Back up. Let's start over.
So sometimes there's squirrels, man, and I get it. Yeah. I get it. They're squirrels.
Yeah, and it's even more interesting if they're like a ghost squirrel.
Right, and we'll talk about that the next time you're on.
Okay, excellent. I would had a good time. Thank you. My gosh.
Yeah, no problem. And I really do appreciate you coming on the show. And I can't wait to have you back.
I would love that. I would have a good time. And I appreciate it. Thank you,
All
sir.
right.
Like I was telling you before, this is like therapy for me. You don't get to talk about it much, so I probably owe you some money.
I mean, no, because I like talking to about this stuff too. This is my hobby that I've turned into kind of my passion. So,
well, it's very enjoyable, and I think you're right where you should be, because yeah, it's working.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So until next time, if you've had a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Talk to you later. Gotta go. And that's it for tonight. If you haven't yet, make sure you're checking out the descriptions on all my videos. You're going to find a list of all my favorite podcasts, from Nevermore Hollows, Drunken Cryptids, Chumming with the Spirits, Ghost Gossip, and so much more. I like them, and I think you will too. And if you go over to their show, make sure you tell them John sent you. And if you've had a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Good night, everyone.
Shadow in the pines lurking in the dusky air. Bigfoot stomps through the woods like he don't care. Lights in the sky flash green then blue. Aliens descending with a secret or two. Whispers in the breeze, cold fingers down your spine. Ghosts in the graveyard, twisting through time. Eyes wide open in the dead of night. The myths and monsters giving one hell of a fright. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Oh, Myths, Monsters, and Mullets podcast, spinning wild tales of a future and a past. Hosted by John Methenkamp's fiery soul. He takes us where the wild unknown flows. Down by the bayou, you hear a raspy growl. Swamp gas glowing as the coyotes howl.